Welcome, Chief. So this is for you if you are going through a bit of a midlife crisis or you're starting to feel symptoms of being at the halfway point of life. And a lot of people don't understand that I'm definitely there. I'm right now, as of this recording, 43, on the brink of 44 years old, which is weird. And I think a lot of people are very confused by my age because depending on the lighting, I can look like I'm in my teens, maybe 20s, generously. But in other lighting, I can look like I'm in my 80s, right? We all have those days, in that fluorescent lighting when we appear to be much closer to the brink of death than we might think. So yeah, I've been feeling this very acutely for a while. And here at Dadaptation, this thing that I'm building, and I invite you specifically to join in whatever capacity makes sense, is learning to be adaptable as a dad. That's the essence of Dadaptation, so that we can continually be on the cusp of winning by our own measure, by our own metrics of success, that we're not defined by success by, Instagram, which is like, brothers, do you have abs? If not, you failed in life. And I have the inklings, I have the makings of abs, but I'm really fit. Abs don't necessarily equate to mental health, spiritual health, thriving in life. Maybe those guys spend a little bit too much time worrying about their body. Who knows? It's not up to me to define what success is for you, right? There are plenty of people who don't have abs who live until they're, 90, 100. They're doing just fine, right? So whatever it is that you define success as a father, that's what I'm here to help you, kind of to create the parameters of success and to help you get there. Part of it is understanding certain awkward feelings. And that's where this comes in. I'm going to talk about midlife crisis because, it comes with a lot of complications, midlife. And most of them are very negotiable and overcomable. But unless you understand the rules by which you are playing, you can't really win, right? You just always feel like you're at a loss or like the game's rigged. Oh, I don't want to get older. Age is not a disease. Let me just say this. Age is not a disease. In the West, I'm recording this from Mongolia. This is where my wife is from. We spend time both equally, like in the West and in the East, because I want that for my kids to understand perspective, but also for myself. It helps me understand, there's certain things that we do in America there's a motorcycle guy racing. I can guarantee that's a guy. Things that we do in the West that makes so much sense, genius. And there's some stuff that we do that is absolutely insane, asinine, backwards, totally crazy. And same with the East, and the East is defined by many different regions who do things very differently. But yeah, I just wanted to give some perspective because in the East, traditionally, they treat age with reverence. Like the older you are, the more respect you get. Now there's some traffic jam, people honking, probably guys too. They would have, they would respect elders and lift them up and be like, sit down and listen to the wisdom because that person has been around on this earth for a long time. They figured some stuff out. In the West, we're kind of like, oh, you're old? That's gross. Do you mind hiding in this home that we've designed specifically just for people like you who look wrinkly and scary because they remind us of something called death, right? And so I do believe that through the Western perspective, which is now, by the way, trickling its way into the East. Like they have retirement centers in places like Korea, which was never a thing. You'd always just live with your kids. And even here in Mongolia, you would raise kids and then when you're older, your kids would take care of you. It just made sense. But now it's really definitely been like, Mom, you're so old. Can you just die already? Kind of like in the West, right? So at the midlife, it comes with a lot of stuff. And that's what I wanted to unpack here. I'm already 4 minutes in. This is sketchy. And look at this hair. This is part of my style, by the way, which is accidental flawlessness. I want to turn the idea of midlife crisis into something that it's like an opportunity to get a lot of stuff right instead of just totally falling apart. The myth is that, middle-aged men have to go through this rite of passage where they just basically become weird. My friend had all of the symptoms. His dad, when I was in high school, one of my best friends, his dad wrote a John Doe letter, except it was Dear Jane. And it was like his dad wrote a letter out of the blue, left the family, and he wrote, you guys knew this was coming for a long time. They totally didn't know this was coming at all. And what ended up happening is he just been repressing all this stuff. He repress, and then didn't know how to deal with these emotions and then just ran. Just bolted because he didn't know how to take care of himself. And so he got every single cliched midlife crisis symptom, which was he started wearing Hawaiian shirts. So gross. Bleached his hair, his thinning hair, by the way. Got a red convertible sports car. He didn't have a lot of money, so it was a Mazda Miata. Couldn't get a Ferrari. He got a condo downtown and he started dating his secretary. It was disgusting. And so you see this and you're like, well, what's wrong with this dude? He just left his wife and kids out in the cold. What would be bubbling up in a man that would allow them the mental justification to just run away on their family in such a cold and ugly way? This is what we want to talk about, because if you understand this, it's an opportunity to resolve a lot of stuff so that you can enjoy the second half of your life. But if not, then you're always going to be reminiscing and always thinking like the best years are behind you, which will haunt you until your deathbed. Okay. So the reality is that this can be like a really deep time, an opportunity, honestly, not just Pollyanna, happy, everything's going to be great. It's just, you can see this as the worst time of your life or the best time of your life. It's a matter of perspective. It really is. And I've been going through the ringer. Trust me, I'm a very conscientious, intentional person. I take care of people all day and I take care of myself, yet still I've run into some very confronting emotions and thought patterns, and I've had to work through them in order to like see, wow, yeah, this time is incredible. Requires some reframing. Okay, so there are some definite thoughts that start creeping in, like I thought I'd be further along in my life. Like I wish I was richer, more successful. You think about the things that you were dreaming about in high school. I was supposed to be the football star, man. Whatever it is, right? And then yet you have this reality. You're in your 30s, late 30s or 40s, right? Or even 50s, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I could have done a lot more, right? And then this other idea of like, if I had everything I wanted, why am I not fulfilled? Because maybe you do have like a lot of external stuff, but internally you're still like jittery. You still don't feel quite right. Is this all there is to my life? This idea of like, could life be better? Could it be more like Instagram? And then when you start comparing yourself to other people, like those people all have it figured out and my life is falling apart. And that's not the case, obviously, but that's a symptom of it, especially with the internet and social media. You're constantly comparing yourself to other people, okay? So the root of the crisis is that we have the wrong set of metrics, right? We are comparing ourselves usually based on external markers rather than like internal fulfillment. I know some incredibly wealthy people who are unhappy, deeply unhappy, have affairs on their wives. At the timing of this, there's that CEO who just got busted at a Coldplay concert, having an affair on his wife, and he has a bunch of kids too, because he had all this external stuff, but obviously internally very deeply insecure and unhappy, right? There's also some really happy, wealthy people that I know. But a lot of the times our comparison of other people is based on external metrics and markers. And also when we start to dry up in terms of like the excitement in our marriage, we start to kind of shop around unconsciously. We're looking at other women being like, man, I wish I was with her, or why isn't my wife more like her? I wish she could kind of like be a little bit like this Instagram model, right? AKA every celebrity who ends up having an affair with their wife for a younger model. Where does this come from? Same brain that wants the next iPhone, etc., who thinks that getting a newer thing will make them be newer. It's the Johnny Appleseed of sex is, if I had the next model young person, then I'll by association be a young person. Yay! Except you just end up looking like a creepy old person, like Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, who are in their 80s fathering children with some random 21-year-old or whatever who is using them for their money. They're using the girl to feel young, right? Instead of just being okay with getting older, right? And celebrating the wife that you've had, that you've gone through all this stuff with, and honoring her and her aging together with your aging. When you panic, you want to like erase every trace that you're old. So that means getting rid of anybody old in your life, including your wife, which is a disaster and makes you really gross, to be honest. Spiritual drift. So a lot of times, we've been neglecting the deeper things in life in the pursuit of the material. So getting ahead in our career, hustling around, and we're not really taking care of our heart and our spiritual life, meaning feeling a sense of belonging in our own bodies, in this universe, that we have value, intrinsic value based on the fact that we're God's children, right? And that we can do great things when we're in that head space and heart space, rather than chasing around the next thing, right? And finding value in how we look and how people perceive us. And so when we live like that for a while, based on, trying to be Instagram updated or, cool or whatever, based on other people's opinions, then we end up losing ourselves in the process. And then we we feel like a stranger in our own lives. That's when we're spiritually drifting. To be spiritually aligned is like, you don't need to go anywhere to be like, I am beautiful and amazing and powerful, and I could do whatever God calls me to do, and I will do it. And then you do it. That's power. But most people kind of, what does it all mean? And I don't know what to invest in. And I don't know what all these weird voices are, but that's our inner voice, I guess. That's what we sound like. So, okay. Why does it feel like a crisis? Because there's that gap between who we are and who we want to be. When that is too wide, it feels irreconcilable. And when we're younger, we're like, yeah, I'm not rich yet, but I'm gonna be when I'm older. And then if we're not rich by a certain age, then we're like, it's too far. It's a game over, right? Or if you wanted to be further ahead in your career, or if you wanted to be happier in your marriage, you feel like it's game over. And that reality starts to sink in and hurt, right? It's also like the time for reckoning is when you realize, as I have, that like I've been out of high school now for like almost 25 years. Like that's shocking. I think it has been 25 years actually. Yeah, I was a graduate of the millennial, like the 2000, and it's 2025 right now. So that's scary. I didn't even do that math until right now. That's live math. It's the best you're ever gonna see me do math. I can't even calculate that, like in many ways, I see high schoolers and they seem a little alien to me, but I also feel like, oh yeah, I'm not that far away. And then I'm like, holy crap, I'm a light years away from high school. And that's a little bit scary, right? Because you could see a mother in her I saw a lady in her 60s and then her daughter in her early 20s. And I'm actually closer in age to the 60-something-year-old than the 20-something-year-old. And that was a slap in the face, right? So that can be confronting for sure. And then the shame spiral is just like when you start to really relate to a sense of disappointment, or just you are not the man that you wanted to be. And I'm telling you guys, if you stay stuck with that, you will end up doing regrettable things, and you'll be missing out on this part of your life. And then when you're 10 years away, you're like, I just wasted my 40s or 50s or whatever it is, right? Which is just an utter waste of time. So here are ways that we exit, right? We try to escape these feelings as we work harder. We stay later at our jobs because we're like, well, if I just work harder, maybe my life will work out. Probably not the case. You want to spend as much time with your family as possible during this time, and appreciate them and love them and soak them in. Give them your very best, because then in 10 years, you're not going to remember the hard work you put in as much as Gary Vee and these fools talk about. Like, look at Gary Vee. He's like, just hustle. It's called hustle porn, right? Because they glorify just working 24/7. And now he's backtracking on that. But I saw him from early days of Gary Vee, and he was absolutely glamorizing the idea of working 20-hour days. And then of course he gets divorced. That was always the question about the back of my mind, is like, is your wife okay with this? Apparently she wasn't. And now he updated his wife for somebody half her age, right? Because he's still working too hard. And he has to compensate for feeling young. So he's missing out on his life. So he's just plugging into somebody young, right? Escapism is, this is how people have affairs. Oh, it's not that bad, right? You're just running away from your life for exciting feelings, right? Same with addictions. This is when alcoholism can creep in, or opioids, or whatever you use to numb the pain. Porn is massive, which just leads you to like fistfuls of shame, just dollops of shame on your soul, right? And all of this is an attempt to avoid the feeling that you're not enough and that you failed. You somehow are a failure, right? Or resignation is, a lot of guys just say they start to get fat and they're like, it's, my time is past. I'll just basically prepare myself in some way, shape, or form for death. I'll just die on some level, right? You don't want this stuff. So this is not a crisis, right? If you take this as an opportunity, you can define success by starting to see phase of my life, what's important to me, and how do I double down on doing that more and more and more and more, and what is significant in my life. Like, if you're watching this video, likely it's your family. So guess what? It's time to double down on your family, not in retirement years. I spend so much time with my family, and it sometimes is really uncomfortable because it means I have to do many things at once. I got to work at the same time as spending time with my family and traveling and doing all this stuff, but it's because it's what I value most. And when I win big. And when I fail, I fall flat on my face, and I got to learn from that. But we've iterated and we've gotten better at it. But the point is, through it all, I've been spending so much time with my family because they're the number one priority in my life. So whatever it is that you, not significant in terms of your ego, but significant in terms of your soul, the stuff that on your deathbed, you'll say like, I'm glad I spent my time doing that. Anything else is a waste of time, right? Of course, we got to make money. We got to pay the bills, okay? But do that as minimally as possible and do the things of significance as much as possible, okay? And you will see that your life will start to even out. You'll start to be less in a mode of crisis. So midlife mastery is like, first, let's pause and reflect. I know I'm not a big journaler, so when I recommend that people journal, it's only if that's like your language of healing, right? But I love meditation. I love prayer. I love reflecting, going into nature and just walking around and thinking. That's how I really get to a lot of the deep stuff, right? Asking myself hard questions. What's going on? Why am I so frustrated these days? Why am I snapping at my kids? What's really going on, right? And then to re-anchor spirituality is like, I'm constantly trying to revitalize my spiritual life, because without that, I'm just a ball of anxiety. We're in a world where AI is becoming more bananas, right? And I just had a crisis this week, and it culminated in me having genuine anxiety about the future of AI, because I'm working a lot with AI. And I went out on a date with my wife, and by the end of that date, I was like, yeah, I'm right back to normal, because we were talking about the fact that I've been listening too much to the voice of humankind, their limitations, rather than plugging in to the voice of God, which is limitless and abundant to the reaches of, like, there are no reaches, there's no end. So the limitlessness of love and ideas and all that, I've been avoiding. You can easily do that through prayer, through building a spiritual life. And that centers you to be like, oh yeah, there's something beyond all of this. And then to start rebuilding your presence at home. When you're at home, be at home. Stop kind of being at home, kind of being at work. That'll drive you crazy. Or zoning out on your phone, like running away on Amazon or whatever. Just be there. And be like, okay, guys, I'm with you. Let's just play for this amount of time. And then you can go do your own thing or whatever. But when you are somewhere, be there, especially at home. Don't be half at home. And if you want to reclaim your identity as a provider, you have to figure out what it is that you're providing. Because a lot of people think that, oh, money's my purpose in life, because that's how we've been brainwashed. But no, you're meant to be the provider of vision. As the man in the house, you're meant to be the provider of positive energy and kind of like the soil and the rain for them to grow, right? And that means being a leading example, being a solid force of like leading, showing people, demonstrating to your wife, to your kids, what it means to be at peace, what it means to be a thriving entity, right? So that means being a thriving entity, and I'll make a whole nother video about how to do that, right? But how to pursue growth with others means I am creating a community so that we can support each other in this, because we all need to support each other and we all need support, right? But you need a reminder that you're more than your present struggles, and especially in vision and in action, okay? This is how you get through this stuff. And when you think about, honestly, my wife was kind of laughing at me this week because she was impressed to an extent that she couldn't relate, that like I really view every day as like a make or break situation. And I want each day to be like a total investment, especially in my kids, my career, like helping people and investing in my family. And when I ignore my kids because I'm working too hard, I get quite, I don't know, I want to say upset, but I really feel it acutely, and I course correct so that the next day is much better, because every day is so precious that you get to spend with your family. When you can feel the stakes, it's somewhat high pressure, but it's super high reward because you don't miss a moment. You can tell when your kid's trying to give you a story or download something to you and you're not paying attention, you can feel it so much. And that's fantastic, because those moments are like their opportunity to connect with the person who made them, and your opportunity as the maker to connect with your progeny, your next generation, okay? So this is an invitation, guys. If you want to, and I'm going to make many videos about midlife crisis. There's a lot of psychology and spirituality involved here that I can unpack, but I wanted to help you unpack just some basic overview of the fact that a midlife crisis is when you start worrying about all the unresolved stuff, and it puts you in a state where you try to skip ahead to resolving everything through external means, through an affair, through porn. You think that's going to resolve your problems, but it only makes everything worse. It compounds your problems. So instead, if you take this opportunity to reflect, to heal the past through prayer, through talking it out, through creating a day-to-day schedule that's super fulfilling, and really fill your heart with gratitude, that's how you maximize every day. And midlife can be super rewarding. And we have the opportunity where we don't have to be like super old, young. People used to dress like old men when they were our age. Not long ago, like kind of my dad's generation kind of did it. Their dad's generation, they straight up just started pulling up their pants higher and higher every decade. And by the time they were in their 40s, it was already past their belly button, right? It was like clearly on their way to their nipples. They were like balloon pants, gonna swallow their head kind of situation. They smelled like baby powder, you know. 40s was like you were already old. You dressed like an older person. Now it's like, I look at my hair. I still dress like a teenager, right? I am limber. I can run faster than most teenagers because they're usually playing video games. My kids are doing pretty good, but yeah, we can prolong our life, but not in the same way. As an older person, you can remain vital and youngish, but you also need to not think that you're young in the weird ways where you like try to hang out at clubs with young people, you know, on weekends or stuff. That's just awkward, right? So here's my invitation to you, you know, click on the links here. You can start to join our community. There's some free options. I have a trained GPT that you can use. I have something where you just give me your email so that we can connect. And then I'll give you a GPT that's trained on how to deal with overwhelm, because a lot of guys are super overwhelmed, fathers, but also, you know, I have other stuff. So just check it out. You need community, and whether it's with me or with somebody else, just keep it real. I gotta go. This has been a longer video than I thought. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it.